Hello again, Struckwap. It's finally time to review Torchlight 3 after a few months, several months actually, of early access. Now I'm ready to review the game, and the game is ready to get reviewed. The game launched yesterday, October the 13th, on 3 platforms: PC Steam, PlayStation 4, not the new PlayStation 5, and Xbox One, not the new Xbox Series S and X. Now, you better strap in because it's gonna be a bumpy roller coaster of a ride, filled with positive and negative emotions. And yeah, there's a lot of things I like about the game, but there are some things I dislike, and I tend to get a little bit heated when talking about those. The first things I would like to mention is now that it's launched, single player is enabled. You can just start single player and it will put you to the character selection screen if you have already created characters. Otherwise it would give you this intro, which I'm going to skip, and allow you to create a character. Basically what I'm gonna do now is, instead of going single player, I'm gonna go back to the main title and go multiplayer, and show you something about the character creation and talk a bit about this. Okay, here we are at the character selection. The game has 4 classes and 5 subclasses, for a total of 20 archetypes, as I like to call them, 20 combinations of class plus subclass. Every class can have every subclass, so for each class you have those 5 options. I'm gonna just go ahead and create a character, but before I do that, I'm gonna quickly show you some of the customization options. You have skin colors, you have name, you have gender. Except for the Forged, it's a robot, so it's kind of non-gender binary or whatever you could call a robot. So there aren't that many customization options, but maybe eventually they're going to add some. So this is the hair options for the male disc mage. This is the hair options for the female disc mage. You've got different hair colors. They've expanded upon those recently, and I'm assuming they're probably gonna do more. You've got hardcore as an option, permadeath if you want, and it allows you to preview the skills of each class. There are no video previews, but I've heard talks about them adding some GIFs or whatever you want to call them, where you can preview in a small window what the skill looks like when cast, and maybe what its bonuses, like tier 1 to 3 bonuses, could be something like this. So maybe they would add this later. You can see the preview of the dark skills, and each class has 1 and a second skill tree, which do different things. So here's the sharpshooter. I'm gonna quickly just show you the skills. I'm not gonna talk in detail. If you wanna get a detailed overview of everything, you can watch my updated newbie guide, the ultimate newbie guide, which I'm making as we speak alongside this video. So it could probably come in the same day as this video, maybe one day before this video, but both videos, I'm kind of recording footage for them at the same time. And here is the Forged. You can see the barrage, which is the ranged side of things, and you can see the bro side of things. And I forgot to show you the customization options on the Forged, on the sharpshooter. So those are the male head options, and those are the hair options for the male sharpshooter. And then you have the female one with those faces and with those hair options. Now back to the Forged. It only has head customization options. It's a steel bow. So I showed you the skills of the Forged, the melee side of things, the ranged side of things, and here comes the Realm Master. He is a master of disaster, kind of, because he has a train that he can have running after him, and he can also be the melee stunning, slowing, knocking back warrior, who can also blind and make enemies vulnerable. You can mix and match stuff, of course, and there's freedom of how you do the skills. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the skill system in a moment. Now that I've showed you this, I'm quickly gonna tell you that the Realm Master can only have 3 train cars. The build train car, which is necessary to use any other train car, it's the lead train car. Then you can pick two more. You can't pick mortar and flamethrower, and you can't pick shield car and shotgun together. So if you pick mortar, you have shotgun and shield. If you pick flamethrower, you have shotgun and shield as well. As options, if you pick shotgun, you can pick either mortar or flamethrower, and if you pick shield, again either mortar or flamethrower. Shocking rounds is an upgrade for the lead car, so you can keep that in mind. And ghost train is just you summoning a ghastly train or three that hits in a straight line and knocks back enemies. So there's the hair options for the male rail master. There's the hair options for the male rail master. And there's the female rail master's head options. There's the hair options for the female rail master. So you've got things to pick, not much, but still nice. So the next thing you would need to do once you select your class and your class is selecting the subclass. So I'm just gonna create this one as just creating something. I'm probably gonna delete this later. So we create this hero, and you have a selection of relics. There's 5. Again, more detail about those relics and all the skills of those you can see in my newbie guide. Basically, I'm just gonna mention that every relic has 5 active and 5 passive skills, and the 5 active skills have 3 tiers. And the active skills, which are 7 plus 7, 14 on each class, has also 3 passive skills based on whether it's a level 1, 3, 6 or 10. You get tier 1 at 3, tier 6 at tier 2 at 6, and tier 3 at 10 skill points invested in the skill. Passives on the relic side of things don't have tiers because, well, it could be a little bit overpowered if they do. And each relic has 2 active skills that cost energy. Direct energy on demand, on the moment of casting it. There's another one that's like an aura that drains energy gradually, and there's one active that requires you to spend a total of 200 energy before you can activate it, which I call the big relic activation skill. And then you have a passive, not passive, but an active 20-second cooldown buff barrier, which gives you things like evasion, like block chance, like ignoring the next sources of damage, like damage reduction or defense, based on what you select. I'm gonna just select the Flaming Destroyer here. Now that you've selected the class and subclass, you see this nice overview of the things again, and you can click continue. And next you select the difficulty after you select your pet, of course. You can't go on a journey in the world of Torchlight 3 without having a trusty companion with you. You can see you have 3 pets you can select as default, but there's much more you can unlock later. You can select between different colors for each of the pets, but let's talk about the difficulties now. You have 5 difficulties. Practice is the easiest. Normal is normal. Hard is for skilled RPG players, and it gives you 5% gear work, 20% monster movement speed. Painful gives you 10% gear work, 10% potion work, 35% monster speed, and ridiculous, which is 20% gear work, 20% potion work, and 50% movement speed bonus. Keep in mind this is monster movement speed bonus, but the potion work and gear work are for you. So there's other things that the game hasn't told you, and that is you do less damage on hard, painful, and ridiculous. On ridiculous you do to regular enemies to bosses you do 70% less damage, so you do only 30% of your damage. I'm gonna try and pull the numbers and include them, if not in the video, in the comment section, for those of you who are interested, because they keep changing, tweaking that with the recent patches. So I might want to check with the latest patches what exactly those numbers are. You also do less damage when you're in a team, so the more people in the team, the less damage you do. And you also, something that the game doesn't tell you is the higher the difficulty, the more fame you get, and fame is needed for some things such as contracts where you get rewards, like a battle pass that is free for everyone, free forever. You have different contracts, 3 for now, that you can switch between without losing progress in each. Keep in mind, in multiplayer, your level sheet indicates to other players the lowest difficulty at which you have played. So next to your name, people would see this shield: practice, normal, hard, painful, ridiculous. The color and design of this shield would be next to your name, and on that shield you would see your level until you unlock the end game and start doing the end game. After that, people would see a yellow number instead of a white number, and the shield would change a little bit at the top with some golden shiny things, and that would represent you started doing the end game difficulty, and the yellow number would represent the number of end game stages that you have cleared. So if you've reached the maximum level, it will show 251. If you reach 60, it will say 60. If you've reached 13, it will say 13, and so on. White numbers are the level numbers, and they will get replaced by the challenge level numbers of the end game. The only end game right now in the game. There's gonna be more coming. And yeah, that's what happens once you select the hero. You can start, I'm gonna skip the intro so I don't spoil you. What happens is you get ported into a port, the port of a certain town on the docks. You arrive by that ship and you talk to an NPC, which tells you the town is under attack and you have to defend it and defeat a mini boss, and then you go on your way to questing. You get a quest from the general. I'm gonna quickly show you exactly what happens. You have to kind of fend off some goblins. You get your first level while fighting those goblins. Level 2 is very quick to reach. Some people don't like that the game is spending your first skill point for you on an active skill that you might not want to use in your build, and later on you would have to use something called Respectacle to remove this skill. So let's do this. Let's take this Relic skill. So I'm gonna skip this, but there is this guy called Yapper who is an NPC, important NPC. I hope I'm not spoiling much, but you defeat him here, and later on you're gonna encounter him in the town, which I'm gonna show you in a moment. It's not a big spoiler, people know it. So let me know whether your team fry Yapper or save Yapper. There's two teams right now: people who wanna fry Yapper and people who wanna save him. He's chained in the city later on as the pet goblin of the town, the pet mascot of the Act 1 town. I probably should have taken a dark skill so I can get my harmonic form. And yeah, every hero has some sort of a mechanic. The Dusk Mage has harmonic form, which is as you use light skills, you channel and gain the light buff bar up, and you gain this thing, which asks you to fill the dark buff bar to get harmonic form, and with the dark buff it's the opposite. You need to fill the dark buff bar to get harmonic form. So yeah, more about those things in my beginner's guide, where I'm gonna talk in detail about all heroes. So yeah, you beat this NPC, and you can now take your first quest, which is to go to the next zone. But after you exit the next zone, you can go back to the town, which I'm gonna show you now. So here we are loading. You can either go on your merry way and get the first waypoint, or get into the first dungeon, then leave it, and then get the first waypoint. My advice would be, while you're here, there's a waypoint further up the road. Take that one, then go back and do your quest in the first cemetery kind of zone. I'm gonna skip this to not spoil you. You can go back to Travel Point, by the way, if you want to, although you're not gonna have much stuff. And don't forget to click here to take your special pet. Based on your platform, whether it's PlayStation, Steam, Xbox or Switch, Switch launches on the 22nd this month, you can take a new pet with you, which looks very nice, especially the one for PC. It's actually my favorite of the glitter sprites. And don't forget, if it's not your first hero, to put a different skill if you want to. So yeah, now I'm gonna switch over to a different scene and talk about something else. Now let's talk about the story, the main story of the game. You saw we defeated Yapper, we saved Travel Point, Act 1's main hub, but there's more to this. There's a race of creatures called the Netherim, which have some, in a way, decided to pull the strings and be behind everything, all the unrest and all the things and all the other creatures going haywire. So the Netherim are controlled by a big creature at the center of it all, and this let's call it person. I'm not gonna say he, she, it. This person has three more people under this person's command that are doing this person's bidding, and you would encounter those as you progress the story. You would have to do various things such as save NPCs, clear out dungeons, collect certain items, and so on. And as you progress, you would see there's zones that are open zones, and not open where you see other people as it used to be in Torchlight Frontiers, but open zones. And in those zones you have dungeons, and you go in those dungeons. There's also mini dungeons, and you have to do certain things like defeat NPCs, find items, etc. In those dungeons. And the quest would take you throughout those zones, and eventually you also reach in between the zones. You can see each act has passages. The passages basically teleport you, if you're playing single player, to your fort. If you're playing multiplayer, you would see a random person's fort and a waypoint. There's always going to be a waypoint. So each zone and each passage has a waypoint, and you see you start with Edgewood Bluff, then Travel Passage, Fields of Unrest, Well-Trodden Path as the... So this, and this are passages. Those are open zones that have dungeons, and you can see which and how many dungeons you have there. Eventually you would reach a boss of each act and move on to the next one. Then there's the city of the next act. And there again you have the same design here, with some things kind of leading to a zone where you have to probably go back and reach the other place. And yeah, eventually you reach another boss and you reached Act 3. And each act has specific creatures. To Act 1 you would see mostly goblins, but also other things. You would see undead everywhere, and you would see Netherim everywhere. And you would also see goblins everywhere, but Goblin Forest Act 1 is all about goblins. Most of the design is goblins, forests, some sort of wooden dock-like houses that are on top of a lake or something like that. Then there's Infested Forest Act 2, where you fight creatures called Hivit, which are insectoid creatures that look like different types of bugs. Some of them look like mantises, some of them are flying creatures, and so on. Some of them are working underneath the ground and show up, and some of them are charging you like beetles, and they charge you from afar. Basically, in any act there will be enemies that charge you from afar, goblin hounds, charge bugs, or Netherim warriors, and so on. Then there's the Voltura, the inhabitants of the Econoc Mountains, which have been abandoned by dwarves who built those buildings and those mountains long ago, and now there's only the remnants of those dwarves. There's automatons. Automatons are mechs, robotic creatures that have been made by the dwarves, by the ancient civilization of the dwarves, to protect those mountains. But the Vultura, which are flying creatures, also mechanical, entirely or partially, and those are controlled by the Netherim as well. They seem like they have been infected by the Netherim, and they are invading those mountains alongside the automatons. But you won't see automatons fighting Vultura. You're not gonna see in this game one type of creatures fighting another type of creature, so you're not gonna be able to pull certain enemies next to others and get them to fight each other. And again, you kind of continue going through the zones. There's the passages in between them, and eventually you beat the boss, and the story is probably to be continued later on. For now, it ends up in a decent way. It doesn't seem like a bad way to end it, but once you've done the story many times, you probably could get bored, and you might want to be able to skip certain types when you start a new hero. So that's kind of it for the story, for the acts. Hopefully this was clear. Next we can talk about something else. At a certain point in time, I think around level 6, 7, 8 or whatever, you would reach a point where you're unlocking your fort and you have to do certain fort quests. In fact, it might be much sooner than that. I think it should be around 4 or 5 even. But yeah, you reach your fort and you have to clear it out from enemies without spoiling much, and then it becomes your fort. And you can do all sorts of things in your fort. You can have a stash, shared stash, that you can store items in and exchange them between one hero and another. You can have wardrobes. More about fort stuff in my beginner's guide, in my newbie guide, the new version. If you want to know more about certain things fort related. But there's a lot of stuff you can do. You can respec your skill points one at a time, like this. For example, I've got 27 respectacles. I'm going to show you. I use a respectacle and then one skill point has been removed, and then I can spend the skill point elsewhere if I want to. Then you have things like this, which is monuments, which you just fit certain things to level them up that give you bonuses. Again, more about fort stuff in my beginner's guide, but eventually you will unlock an enchanting counter to enchant items as well, and you can build a lot of different buildings and place them wherever you want, like this. You can of course remove them. And in your fort is where you would be doing endgame, and we will talk about endgame later. There's also where the pet shelter is, and it's your base of operations. It's where you would be spending a lot of time, especially if you love playing the Sims mini game inside of the game. You would be decorating and doing stuff when you get bored inside this place. The things in the fort, the buildings in the fort require resources, and there's 3 types of resources, each of them having 3 tiers. So you have wood blocks, stone rocks, and metal nuggets. Then you have planks, stone blocks, and metal bars. And then you have things like sacred hardwood, the tier 3 wood. You have comet fragments, which is the tier 3 stone box, and then there was one more thing I forgot the name of, that's the tier 3 metal bar. And for the buildings, most of them would cost some of those materials, and you would need those materials to build them. In general, it's pretty nice, and you can craft tier 2 materials with smelting metal and making stone blocks from stone ore, and making planks from wood. But the tier 3 materials you can only get from gathering, and you can gather tier 1 or tier 3 materials spread around the map, but you can earn materials from contracts. In fact, that's the meta way of earning materials right now, from contracts. You also have a dummy in your fort, which you can use to test your build's DPS capabilities. In general, there's a lot of things you can do, and you can visit other people's forts, and other people can visit your fort. Next, I'm going to talk about the Fazir Shah's dungeon challenge, which is the end game that we unlock after completing Act 3 on every character. So every character needs to complete Act 3 of the story and beat the 3rd final boss of the game, and then they get this item, which they can place anywhere on their fort and interact with the item to be able to run those dungeons. I'm gonna try and be a little bit brief compared to my Ultimate Newbie Guide. If you want to hear my detailed thoughts on the endgame, what I like and what I dislike more in detail than what I'm gonna say now, you could watch my Newbie Guide, or that part of the Newbie Guide where I talk about endgame. So first I'm gonna explain what it is, then I'm gonna explain the things I like and the things I don't like. I'm gonna try and be quick. So you talk to him and then you get challenge rules. Challenge rules start with no challenge rules, and as you beat your first 3 maps, which is you beat map number 1 by selecting one of those 3 cards, you would be given a specific set of 3 cards, and the first ones I think are always the exact same ones. and then they start randomly rolling as you complete cards for the next. So you beat 1 and you reach 2. If you die on 2, you go back to 1. If you die on 3, which is a boss fight, you go back to 1. Every time you're gonna be given a choice of 3 cards. On the card you would be able to see the map name, which kind of can hint at what type of map it is, as well as the monster types, which as well could hint at the map, but not always. Sometimes it could be misleading, because you can get skeletons in a map that normally doesn't originally have skeletons. Then you see the type of elemental damage: fire, electric, poison, or physical would be shown up here. Then you have a positive and a negative modifier. The negative, of course, has been put in red to stand out, and the positive is with blue. This negative and positive modifier is only for the map. And as you beat your first boss, you unlock the next challenge and the next checkpoint. So now if you die, you're gonna be respawning into this. But now comes the next layer of depth for this. And this is the additional affixes you get for challenges. So now, regardless which map I pick, on either of those, the map would have Nimbo attached to it. So this would be Nimbo Angered Ancestors Reliquarian. This would be Nimbo Boom Room Infamous. And again, if you die here on 5, you go to 4, if you die on 6, you go to 4, and if you die on 7, you go back to 4. The double punishment, the DP of this game, as I like to call it. Because not only do you die in the map and leave it, because there's no resurrections inside of those maps, not even once or twice, but you also can go back a few maps and lose like an hour or hour and a half if you're a little bit slower on the clearing side of things, worth of progress. So as you see, the challenge rule now changed to berserking, and then it goes to double health, and then it goes to blazing, and then it goes to plague bearer, and then it goes to Stormbringer, and then it goes to Netherwell, and then I think it goes to Siege, and so on. So you will see that those challenges change, and eventually you're gonna start seeing 2 challenges as you move through the stages. Then you're gonna start seeing 3 challenges. You're not gonna see 4, at least as far as I know. It doesn't go more than 3 challenges. It just won't have room to fit them unless they change a little bit the UI. But 3 challenges on top of your additional a negative affix. That's 4 negative affixes for the harder stages. From what I'm hearing, after stage 100 you don't get extra damage, but because I'm gonna try and show you, I'm gonna go and load into a map just to show you what I mean, additional things. So you start at level 46 enemies, and then you move all the way up to level 60 enemies. At one point, I think at stage 16 or 17, you start getting percent damage, percent movement speed, and percent HP. So the monster damage increases by 0.02 per challenge level after you've reached level 60. So I'm gonna go back to that one and show you the exact stage where this happens, so you can see the exact number that you would expect for every challenge level. It should be, I think, level 16 or 17. Just a moment. It's the blazing one. The blazing one is where it starts. So the blazing one is the first one after level 60. Let's just enter either of those so you can see the numbers. And yeah, you get 0.02 damage. It used to be 0.5, and now you're getting 25% less damage increase. Not sure if this is intentional or bug. If it's intentional, thank you, Extra Games. If it's a bug, well, use it to your advantage while you can. So you see the monsters get 10% HP every level after 60. They get 5% movement speed and 0.02 monster damage, which means around level 100, when they stop, you're probably gonna have close to 2% damage, close to 1000 HP, and close to 50% movement speed. After that, it's gonna be ridiculous. The monsters would be zooming through the map after that if they give them any more movement speed on top of the 50% you get from ridiculous by itself. And the HP would make them bullet sponges. The damage numbers okay, even if they get more damage numbers, I think maybe something's not gonna be one-shotty, but the way it is right now, they get, I think, what, 2%? Maybe 20-30% is acceptable. But keep in mind certain maps increase that by another 50. But in any case, I think the damage right now is not so bad. That's why people probably completed this sooner than before. So I hope this is clear how the Fazier's dungeon works. But people would say, okay, why do I want to do this? What's in it for me? Well, there's gonna be an item set that only drops here, and that's gonna be wearable by every hero. Later on, maybe they could add some more rewards. If they're thinking of adding new items, maybe they're gonna add more stuff to the Fazier. But it's a Fazier exclusive drop. You can't get it outside of the Fazier. Other things you might want to consider is that I hope they add rewards. I hope they add rewards, because right now, apart from that extra set item, the only other thing is bragging rights. And the bragging rights is, for example, if you open your inventory, here you're gonna see this badge. This badge represents the lowest difficulty you have played and your level. People would see that badge next to your name, but once you start doing the end game, the Fazier's dungeon, people would be able to see other things. People would be able to see a yellow number instead of a white number. They would still see the badge representing the lowest difficulty you have played, but they would also see the yellow number representing the highest stage of the Fazier. So that's bragging rights. Not everyone cares about bragging rights, and not everyone would feel motivated to push it if they're not rewarded. So I had one suggestion long ago, sent it to the developers to consider it, to allow us to unlock blue gear bundles and legendary gear bundles for the first time we finish a boss. Let's say I finish this boss, I get blue gear bundle. I finish this boss, I get another one for the first time when reaching the next checkpoint. Then I finish this third one, I either get a blue or a legendary. If I get a blue on this one, then maybe the fourth one should be the legendary. Just it's a number. You can maybe get 3 blue or 4 blue and then legendary. You can get 2 blue and then a legendary. In any case, I think it would be nice if people know that if they unlock a certain stage for the first time, there would be eventually some nice reward in it for them. Other things that might motivate you to do Fazier's dungeon is gear lucky maps. Those maps have 50% gear luck, which means you wouldn't need to stack all of it in your gear. The gear cap is 100% for gear luck, and gear luck is item quantity, not quality. It means you get more items, which indirectly means you get more legendaries, because more item drops means more rolls of the dice for what rarity that item is, and eventually that would mean you're gonna get more legendaries. So gear lucky maps, that's another reason to do this. You can also farm fame, but they kind of nerfed the rewards from fame. But you could before farm legendary gear bundles. Now you can get greater and lesser. But people have told me they have already obtained legendary items from lesser gear bundles. Not sure if it's intended or not. It says random magic or better, meaning legendary counts as better. This is rare or better, so it could probably contain legendary gear in those. You can farm respectacles with fame, so if you want to respec farming infamous uniques maps is still worth it. If you want to farm gearwork maps like those that give you here, and that's the gearwork ones. Gearwork maps would give you, supply run maps would give you 25% gearwork, so you could farm them if you want to, and you can farm resources and other good stuff. So if you want the rewards from the contracts, farming infamous unique maps is still worth it to push those contracts levels for various things. I hope I've explained everything again. There's a lot more I said about it in my Ultimate Newbie Guide, I think in part 2, so you might want to see that if you want to know more about the endgame. Another thing I would like to quickly talk about would be the itemization system. There's a ton of misinformation and people throwing shit into on the game about that system on various different forums online, and I strongly disagree with a lot of the stuff that's being said. First of all, not everything that's simple is bad. Sometimes simple is good as long as it's powerful, and I think the itemization system here is simple and powerful, but also could use some hints, so it's not a perfect system. So you've got white items, which are common items, then you have green items, which are magic, then you have blue items, which are rare, and you have legendary items, which are the orange. Legendary and blue items starting from level 47 and up to 60 can get 1 socket. Blue items can get 2 sockets. 3 items can get white items can get 3 sockets. The thing is, socketed white items get less numbers on the stats than socketed green, which get less than socketed blue, which get less than socketed legendary. In certain slots you will want legendary, in other slots you would want blue gear. Legendary is not always the best in slot. In fact, for weapons, chest armor, legs, and in certain cases, for probably 90% of the builds, you would want boots as well. For the forge, that would translate into hatch instead of boots, and Woku motion instead of flex, although it makes no sense to be that way. It should be in the other way around, because the boots touch the ground and so do the Woku motion, and the hatch is in the middle and so is the legs. But right now the hatch equates to boots and the Woku motion equates to the pants. So for those 4 items, in most cases you would want blue. And that leaves most builds with the choice of gauntlets, shoulders, and helmet for the 3 legendary pieces of the class specific set to get the ability to have +2 skill levels for one skill tree and for the other, if you need it. In most builds you're getting a lot of skill points if you get this done, like 10, 12, in certain cases even more, depending on how many skills that are not relic you've invested into. But there are some very nice and strong builds that barely invest into the class skills, that wouldn't care about those extra skill points, that are going purely a relic with just a little bit of support from class skills, and that's acceptable. So why do I say that it's a strong system? Well, first of all, you have the legendary items giving you legendary skills which go into the legendarium, and you have like 111 minus 3 times 16, because every class has like 16 items that are for that class. So take 111, remove 3 times 16 from that number, and then you get the total number of items that you can wear. There's more coming. There's a full new set coming, which is other 6 items. There's another item that is getting reworked, the bird's eye view or something like that. That's for the forged. Then there's what else was removed? Oh, there's another greatsword that's coming soon that would allow us to summon 9 goblins for 20 seconds. Another great item, but it would have to go into our skill bar slot. So in general, when you combine skills and passives, and when you combine the relic skills and relic passives, and the tier 1, 2, 3 bonuses with certain modifications from the legendarium, for example, like infectious shooter. Infectious shooter is a perfect example. Look at this projectile now. I'm gonna try and show you where you can see it. This projectile, the poison projectiles that come from my 3 other projectiles, all of those can trigger certain things like procs and whatever else you encounter, and they're nice. Or for example, this bow lets me shoot down lightning strikes every second. This one, this one, this one, this one. So yeah, that's nice. And then I've got something like, for example, Lil Drake. I can show you here. It leaves a burning field on the ground. So when you consider this, and when you know that certain items you can wear and certain items you can put in the legendarium, and when you know that legendary items don't get the same affixes that blue do, for example, blue chests can get % and flat damage. Legendary chest cannot. The same applies to pants and locomotion. The legendary ones cannot get the flat damage and the percent damage. That's why you might prefer to wear a blue one instead of legendary. Legendary weapons don't get as much flat damages as blue ones. That's why most people use blue weapons and wife bind them. Legendary items cannot be wife bound, and in a moment I'm gonna talk quickly about wife bound. In general, the system is good, and there is plenty of depth to it, and there is room to grow. The way I would like to see this system grow is the enchanting system to get expanded. Right now the enchanting system is you take an item, and based on the rarity of the item you can disenchant it, and it costs 1000 for legendary, 750 for blue, and 500 for green, and I forgot how much it was, probably 250 for white item. You disenchant items that have already been socketed. If an item has not been socketed, you can just put something on top of it. If you don't like it, you disenchant until you get something you like, or run out of money, or something else. And see, I just made myself a decent weapon here. And now let's talk about what I would like to see added. I would like to see an option to change the affixes on a certain item in the following way. For example, you see this one gives me physical and poison damage. Let's say, let's take this one for example. This one gives me fire damage and health on killing a Vultura. Let's say I don't want health on killing a Vultura, I want electric damage. I would like a system where I can use resources, for example the magic, blue and legendary essence, to be able to change those affixes. In a way it has been done in Diablo 3, in Chronicon and in other games that allow you to use resources to reroll the innate affixes, not the socket affixes. Yes, we can reroll the sockets, but it would be nice to have a system to reroll the others, because certain times a legendary item would be super hard to get. Certain legendaries drop much more often than others, which I don't think it's really fair if they're the same rarity. So I would like a system that does that. Now let's talk about wife bound. Wife bound is basically you find a scroll of wife bound, you apply that scroll on an item, and the item gets 20% extra stats. But if you die, the item is lost on death. It's not a perfect system. I like the old system where you find the wife bound item with the 20% stats and you use scroll of unbinding that removes the wife bound but retains the stats. But there's an even better way to handle this system, and this is durability. Wife-bound items having durability, and when you die, you lose durability based on the difficulty you're playing. For example, you lose 100% durability on the hardest difficulty, on ridiculous, and maybe you would lose 50% in the middle difficulty on hard, and maybe on practice you could lose 25%. These are numbers, they can be changed. This is my suggestion of how the wife-bound system can become more fun. And how do you repair it? Either with a new consumable item, magic anvil, magic hammer, blessed hammer, holy anvil. It could be anything, or even better, essence. We already have the resource, why not use it for this as well? It could even be used in the enchanter's outer as a separate tab. There could be a separate tab here, and you could probably click on enchanting and disenchanting, or maybe the tab could be wherever you want to put it. The buttons, then they can be rearranged. They can add a little bit something like this, and just have buttons for enchanting and re-rolling, or whatever they want to call it. This is just my idea. I hope this improves as well. So you have also pet items. So apart from items for you, you have items for your pet. It's 2 tags and 1 pet color. So you can see some of those items. I'm gonna quickly show you. Yeah, you have the Quackwork token, you have Inferno token, Electric Warding, Fire Warding, Poison Warding, Phoenix token, which is one of my favorite, Drat Neckband, my favorite one. Then you've got Token of Invigoration, another one of my favorite. Then you've got Ancient Ones token, which shouldn't be discounted as a bad item. It's actually nice. Those 2 summons can proc things. and they benefit from minion damage. Then there's rapid bartering, which is very good for farming. In general, there are certain good things. I would like to see the pet system expanded, and maybe it's a good time to talk quickly about the pets. You beat bosses and you find pets, and you decide whether you want to keep them, whether you want to put them in your shelter, or whether you want to swap your current pet, or whether to release them. If you keep them, again, there's the two options: replace your current pet by putting the current pet into the shelter and use the new one, or just put the new pet that you get into the shelter and then later on you can take it. Any pet can have any skill, so finding legendary pets has higher chance of giving you rare skills, rare pet skills, but any pet can wear any skill. So you can put this skill or any other skill on this pet as long as you unlock it. So once you rescue a skill, it randomly generates a skill for that pet. So you rescue a pet, you get lucky, you unlock that pet with that skill, and that skill is now usable on every other hero. Now here's the things how I would like to see the pet system expand. I would like to see passive, aggressive and a neutral stance. Passive, where actually let's call it defensive, neutral and aggressive stance. I would like for defensive the pet to stay very close to you and only attack enemies that are within close range and that are attacking you. Aggressive to go a little bit further than its current leashing radius and attack things on its own without you telling it to a little bit more often, and the regular maybe could be the same as now. I would like to see more pet skills added into the mix. And I like that the system right now is not like Torchlight 2. You don't have the food, so there is no overpowered potential from farming that could give someone advantage over someone else. I like other things as well. That for example the pet is just a cosmetic skin, so different pets look differently but they all can use the same skill, and I love this system. I like this kind of balance they've added, pets being just there for cosmetic purposes, and yeah, of course you have legendary pets which have a higher chance of coming with a good skill, but once you get that legendary pet, the skill can be used by anyone. Everyone gets a nice legendary pet as the start based on their edition. PC players get this one, there's few more out there. The next thing I would like to talk about is the combat mechanics. How it feels to play the game is something I really like. It's fast paced, it's dynamic, you've got very smooth animations, especially on certain skills from certain classes. And some of the effects you can add on top of other skills, such as my scout's bones shooting those poison projectiles, are amazing. They provide some very fun way of playing certain builds. Other things that you might notice is the game is not designed in a way where you can do the gotta go fast supersonic mentality where everyone's speed running and doing stages super quick, because certain monsters are not spawned immediately. You have to go next to them and wait for their animations before you can even attack them and do damage to them. Some may not like this, I really like it. I really like this specific part. So let's talk next like a summary about the pros and cons. On the pros side of things, I think the biggest pull is the tons of build variety, which comes from combining the 4 classes with 5 subclasses for a total of 20 archetypes. And when you add the gear and the legendary skills that come from gear, this expands further the build variety, and it can be expanded even further. The way the game is designed, new subclasses and relics can be added at a later stage kind of easily in brackets to expand that build diversity even further. The new hero classes could also expand it if they decide to add new hero classes, but new hero and classes are much harder and much slower to develop than new relics and subclasses. So I'm gonna mention this as a pro, the fast-paced combat without pushing the gotta go fast mentality that I just mentioned. This for me is a pro. I'm also gonna mention a decent amount of legendary items that help us spice up our builds. Seems to be a pro for me, and all 4 classes offer unique mechanics or gimmicks, if you wanna call them. Although I would like to see some changes, in particular the sharpshooter. I would like to see a change. How the sharpshooter adventurer bonuses work. I would like, if I have 1 adventurer bonus with remaining charges and use another adventurer skill, I would like to have stacking the 2 adventurer bonuses. Let's say I've got 2 more extra crit chance hits from Ghost Visage, but then I use Goose. I would like to still have those 2 Ghost Visage charges, but also gain the Goose charges. I think it won't make the class overpowered, it would make it more fun and push people into picking more adventurer skills and using them in a specific order. Because right now it only matters which one you've used right before shooting with your precision skills, and it limits us in a way. So this is pro and a con at the same time. The Forge is getting reworked, so I'm not gonna talk about things I don't like about him. And there's also bugs, which again goes into the con side of things, but bugs are something normal, every game has it, so I'm not gonna list it as cons, because there aren't any game breaking, progress breaking, annoying bugs, but there are bugs that some people may not like. So more on the pros side of things, the Forge system is an amazing game within the game that many people may love and use to express their creativity. I've suggested to consider adding multiple floors once in my stream, and actually more than once. Vertically adding new floors would be nice as a 4 DLC, but of course after we get enough endgame variety. After we have enough endgame variety, I wouldn't mind seeing a 4th DLC. Fortified the DLC to even further expand the horizons for people who want a break from the grind and want to just play Sims our Torchlight 3. Then there's an okay Gambler, but I could see that Gambler expanded, so it's a pro, but for some it might be a con that there isn't enough how do I say, specifics about the gamble. You can't gamble for swords or pistols or maces, you can gamble for one-handed. You can't gamble for bows or great swords, you can gamble for two-handed. Co-op is incentivized in the game and makes the game better, but everything is designed to be soloable. They're single player, which is another thing I really like about the game. There is also a very decent amount of enemies and enemy types, and that keeps getting expanded, and for the past few months they've been adding new enemies, which is pretty decent. Now let's focus on the cons. First and foremost, the most important thing is the little to non-endgame variety, but we already have it confirmed that more is coming soon, and soon they will be ready even to review what is in the works endgame related. Another thing about the endgame is that the current endgame does not feel rewarding enough and needs some sort of incentives to make us want to do it, other than the cosmetic bragging rights from those badges. Or those upcoming Fazir exclusive sets, those will not be enough to incentivize everyone to keep pushing that. So then the pet system could also use expanding, as I mentioned earlier. The enchanting system could also use expanding, as I mentioned here earlier, and the wife bound system could use expanding or a rework, as I mentioned earlier. Again, those are just my thoughts. Some people might think completely differently regarding those things I mentioned. There's also certain things that are invisible to the player, which I would like to see more transparency, such as how much fame we get when playing on different difficulties. Some people would want to know this information, so it wouldn't hurt to add some sort of extra text or button that you click to make a pop-up when creating the character and picking the difficulty. Apart from that, I think that the pros outweigh the cons for me personally. Whether for you the cons would be the thing that outweighs the pros, or the pros would outweigh the cons, remains to be seen. You have to decide for yourself. This was my review of the game. I've been waiting a long time to make this because I don't like reviewing early access unfinished products. If you'd like to get notified when I upload more content for Torchlight 3 or other Wooter games, whether it's RPGs or shooters or even something in between, you can subscribe to my channel. You can also click the bell button to not miss the notifications. And optionally, if you feel like it, you can even click the join button to be a member of my YouTube channel, which is completely optional and doesn't change your viewing experience of the other content in any way. So thank you Struck Club for watching this video. Keep it cool, until next time, and goodbye from me.